Hello, this is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the webinar dedicated to exploration of flexibility without stretching. Last week we had a similar webinar and I received a lot of feedback from the folks who attended the webinar and were curious about digging deeper into the subject of exploration of flexibility and discovering this peculiar way of improving flexibility without doing any stretching. How is it possible? Everybody is doing stretching. I received several emails from folks who were saying, I've been doing yoga since I was a kid, or I've been doing stretching for decades. I am more flexible now than I was back when I started. Why are you saying that stretching is not good? Well, let me clarify this once and for all. Flexibility exploration that we do may be more beneficial than stretching. For some few, there may be some benefits to stretching that perhaps they've been enjoying. Now, would they enjoy our methodology of flexibility without stretching more? I bet they would. Would they be able to benefit more from our methodology of flexibility exploration? Yes, they would. And probably would have been even more flexible and more comfortable in their bodies had they done that instead of stretching that they had been doing for decades. However, I don't want to say that there is no chance you become more flexible if you do stretching, because not all stretches are born equal. Some stretches are more intense and likely to cause more stretch reflex, cause yourself basically greater tension afterwards. Others may be more mild and more mindful. So there are people who do stretching, but they do this on such a mild and in such a mindful manner that they may not be causing themselves as much grief. The general definition of stretching is that it's the action that pulls the muscle beyond the edge of its comfort zone. If you are pulling the muscle so that the distance from one end of the muscle to the other end increases, but it doesn't cross the threshold of the comfort zone, it means you're exploring your range of motion. It is not a stretch. That may be also the challenge that some folks experience with definitions. They think that they are stretching, but actually they aren't, which is actually a great way to proceed. If you simply focus on exploration of your comfort zone, you're almost guaranteed to improve your flexibility. Why? Because as you explore your range of motion and you get to the edges of your comfort zone, but you don't push yourself over the edge very much, that will actually allow you to become more comfortable on the edges of your comfort zone. And by doing so, you expand your comfort zone. And it happens gradually and organically. So you're not throwing yourself over the edge of the comfort zone. You actually simply expand your comfort zone step by step. This type of baby step approach actually works really well for many people, and I would highly recommend sticking with it if this is what you're doing. If what you're doing is more intense type of stretching that involves also holding poses like in yoga, sometimes it may be done slowly enough so you don't cause yourself as much harm. And you may even end up a little bit more flexible as a result. So I don't want to say that all stretching should be painted black or deemed bad. Like I said, I don't even believe in good and bad. Everything is on the scale of applicability, of resonance, if you will. So you may resonate with one approach more than another approach. It doesn't mean that the approach that you resonate has to be 100% resonance. Maybe you'll never find something that you resonate with perfectly 100%, but you may find something that works better for you than something else. Since everything is relative in our world, you may find that certain things work better for you than others, at least at this time. Among those options that are available to you at the moment. Some options work better for you than others. There may be some new options that come your way next day or next year, and you may be able to find even better approaches. What happens is that we need to find what works and what doesn't work, which requires testing. And that, my friend, is what most people miss in their practices. The majority of people don't really test what they're doing. They're just simply assuming that this technique was given to them by the guru or expert or some authority figure, and that's the best thing since sliced bread. If we don't assume that one thing is right and the other thing is wrong and simply test, then we'll find out what gives you better results, what gives you worse results, and instead of deeming one approach bad and the other good, we simply keep discovering what works better. And as we continue the exploration, we constantly enhance what we're doing. What we're doing is we're exploring flexibility. As we enhance the flexibility, we become more flexible. So exploration is the path. It's not the path to flexibility. It's a path of flexibility. Just like what makes a person a master is not the achievement of a particular level of accomplishment and dwelling on that level of accomplishment. It's the process of mastering. And the more masterful you become, the more you realize that there is a great deal of improvement still waiting for you. But as you become more masterful, you become capable of doing things with ease that others find difficult. Well, that's the definition of mastery in my book. So, what do we find difficult in many cases is exploring flexibility, because many people aren't as flexible as they would like to be. It's probably fair to say that close to 90 or maybe 95% of people you come across would like to be more flexible. For some people it doesn't really matter. They live such a sedentary lifestyle that they don't care if they're more flexible or less flexible. Even those people who are not couch potatoes, they are perhaps kind of recreational athletes, or they engage in some activities, but they're not checking their flexibility. It's hard to tell if they need to become more flexible. But over the course of every day, or at least once a week, they probably notice that certain movements are hard to make. That means that their range of motion is limited. If the range of motion is limited, there is room for improvement. As you improve your range of motion, as you develop greater flexibility, those movements that were difficult become easy. Well, that's mastery. As you become more masterful, you also become more confident, you feel like you're on the right track, and feel more motivated to continue the journey. That's exactly what I would like to invite you to do. I would like you to experience some incremental improvement. Notice how much you're improving, and then feel like you're on the right track and you want to continue the journey with me. In order to experience that today, I would like to put to good use the principle that I shared with you in our previous webinar, where we talked about the idea of shortening the muscles instead of stretching. Remember the definition of stretching? It's pulling the muscle beyond the edge of its comfort zone. What happens when you pull the muscle? Like a rubber band, it snaps back. There's actually a very simple physiological mechanism involved in that. It's called stretch reflex. If you pull the muscle beyond the edge of the comfort zone, by definition it becomes uncomfortable. And the nerve endings embedded in the muscle start sending signals of alarm to the central nervous system. I'm in pain, the muscle is threatened to be torn. So the central nervous system will respond by sending signals of contraction to this muscle so it doesn't get torn. When this muscle receives signals of contraction, what does it do? Well, it contracts. It becomes more tense. When it becomes more tense, it brings two ends of the muscle closer. Instead of becoming more flexible, you actually become less flexible. That, unfortunately, is an imperative. Everybody who's done some stretching knows that it does happen virtually every time you stretch. On some occasions, it doesn't happen as egregiously in some others. For example, if you really warmed up your muscles, you will not cause as much stretch reflex. It's absolutely necessary to warm up before doing stretching if you choose to do stretching. But if you work on lengthening instead of stretching, it's still a really good idea. Because if the muscle is cold, it's not going to be very pliable. Imagine a piece of cold meat that you pull out of the refrigerator. That cold steak is not going to be very flexible, will it? And try to pull it, it's not going to yield. It basically is too cold. The same thing happens also to the living tissue, even though it's not coming out of the fridge, but it's still not going to be very pliable if it's not warmed up properly. What constitutes warming up? Well, generally speaking, it's contracting and relaxing the muscle. That's the function of the muscle, contracting and relaxing. Now, when we hold tension in the muscle, especially if it's a chronic tension, it becomes hard to contract and relax the muscle because it's contracted already, and so it doesn't have much more room for contraction. If it could relax, it would have relaxed a long time ago. You wouldn't be tense. But it's holding tension, therefore it's a dysfunctional muscle. It's the muscle that actually has a hard time functioning, contracting and relaxing. It also obviously is shorter, so it's limiting in terms of range of motion, or it's not flexible. What do we do with it? We engage in a paradoxical behavior. We actually engage this muscle in shortening. Last week we talked about passive shortening. So I demonstrated how you can passively shorten your hamstrings. Somebody emailed me saying, well, while you're shortening hamstrings, aren't you stretching your quads, the muscles of the front of the upper thigh? The answer is no, I'm not stretching the quads. I'm very mindful of the edges of my comfort zone. So I'm not pulling the quadriceps beyond the edge of this comfort zone, therefore I'm not causing stretch reflex. If I were doing that, I would be fooling myself or trying to fool you. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not interested in fooling myself or anybody else. I'm interested in finding out the truth. And the truth of the matter is that you need to shorten the muscle first before you can lengthen it. Let me explain. When we shorten the muscle, we help this part of the body to achieve its dream. It's almost like the tense muscle is not just holding tension for no good reason. It's got a dream. The dream of bringing the two ends closer together. If you help this muscle manifest its dream, you quite literally encourage it to shorten. It will experience a little bit of cognitive dissonance, so to speak. It'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I've been struggling to achieve this dream for a long time, and finally, now somebody came along and helped me manifest my dream. The muscle will experience a little bit of confusion and send the signals to the central nervous system. Oh my God, somebody came along and helped me out. I no longer need all the signals of contraction from you. Thank you very much. Then the central nervous system will take a little bit of time, usually a minute or two, to figure out that it doesn't need to send the signals of contraction to this muscle anymore. When the muscle stops receiving so many signals of contraction, what does it do? Well, it starts letting go of tension. In other words, it relaxes. And when it relaxes, it naturally starts lengthening. The reason why it wasn't longer because it was holding tension. Once the tension is no more, the lengthening process occurs. And as the muscle starts lengthening, you can simply explore how far it will lengthen before crossing the edge of the comfort zone. You don't want to lengthen beyond the edge of the comfort zone because it's no longer lengthening, it's stretching. So if we keep our mind focused on the experience that we're going through, we become mindful. That's how you become mindful. You focus your mind. As you become more mindful, then you will be able to handle this a lot better. For example, how do you handle the process of lengthening so it doesn't turn into stretching? It doesn't cause you a stretch reflex, which can very well happen if you overstretch after the muscle release tension. That is something that many people experienced because they were not mindful enough. So I implore you to become mindful. And when you become mindful, you will be able to start exploring the edges of your comfort zone once you have released the tension, once you've become more relaxed. As you're exploring the edges of the comfort zone, you don't push yourself over the edge. You actually start moving along the edge of the comfort zone. So you change the direction of movement at 90 degrees. What does it look like? Well, for example, instead of stretching and pushing the arm beyond the edge of the comfort zone, for example, if I have tension in the pecs, I change the direction. Instead of pulling the arm backwards, I start moving up or down, exploring the edge of my comfort zone. So I'm not pushing myself over the edge. I'm just experimenting what it's like to be on this edge. And the more time I spend on the edge of my comfort zone, the more I get used to being on this edge, thereby expanding my comfort zone. When my comfort zone expands gradually and slowly like this, it's sometimes even hard to notice unless you compare one side versus the other side. If you just spend a few minutes working on exploring the edge of the comfort zone on one side with one arm or one leg, and then compare it to the other side, this juxtaposition becomes very apparent. The side that you were not doing this with doesn't feel quite the same. Many people say it's kind of feeling asleep by comparison, or it feels like it's not even alive. And so you bring that part of the body online, or make it alive, by doing the same thing. Again, moving along the edge of the comfort zone instead of pushing yourself over the edge. You're guaranteed to experience transformation because you cannot avoid becoming more flexible as you explore the edges of your comfort zone. It just doesn't happen. That's why I'm so confident about the benefits of this approach. I'm also confident because this is not the only tool in the toolbox that I have to offer. For example, today I wanted to bring to your attention the connection between flexibility on one hand and strength training on the other hand. Most people think strength training and flexibility contradict each other because those people who lift weights or use exercise machines often become more tense and stiff or stiffer afterwards. After lifting weights or using exercise machines, they basically become more rigid and stiff, as that means that they become less flexible. However, it is totally possible to increase your strength and enhance your flexibility at the same time. That's what I do. That's what I teach and practice all the time. How do I do it? It's the matter of doing it smart instead of doing it hard. If you engage in strength training in a hard way, you basically start tearing the muscle tissues. That's how most people enhance their strength. They basically create micro tears inside of the muscle fibers, And then muscle fibers grow back, and often they grow back bigger and stronger than they were before. That's called hypertrophy of the muscles. That's also how bodybuilders build bigger muscles, because they want to look good. That doesn't necessarily lead to much greater strength, however. It leads to bigger bulk. Why does that happen? Well, because they often do not engage all the fibers of the muscles in action. Let me explain. Just like people talk about their brains, how they're not using 100% of the brain capacity. Most people purportedly use only maybe 10 or 12% of their brain capacity. What happens? Obviously, it leaves a lot of room for improvement. If you could use only 20% of your brain capacity, it would still mean that you're only using 1/5, but you would double your brain function. Well, that wouldn't be too bad, would it? How about doubling your strength? We also use a fraction of our muscle fibers when we engage in exercise or lifting weights or other strenuous activities. In most cases, majority of people also use maybe 10 or 12%. If you're a trained athlete, maybe 15%. If you're really well trained, maybe 20%. But that's still a fraction of what you've got. How do you know that you only use a small percentage of your muscle mass? Very easy. After any workout where you gave your muscles a strenuous challenge, usually you will experience what we would call a rope inside the muscle. It's like you massage your muscles, for example, that you worked out, and it feels like there is a rope inside. A number of fibers get really tense and sore. Why are they sore and tense? Because those were the muscle fibers actually doing all the work. The rest of the muscle was slacking off. That's right. Even though you may have big muscle, you may only use a small percentage of it when you're trying to lift weights. You can beef it up, but it doesn't mean that it gets to experience full capacity at all. You simply engage the muscle in more activity, which is a fine thing to do, better than sedentary lifestyle as a couch potato. But there is a better way to go. And that better way is by learning how to engage a higher percentage of muscle mass in function, in contraction. How do you do that? Well, there are two phases of contraction. One is called concentric, and the other is called eccentric. Concentric is the movement that brings the two ends of the muscle closer together while the muscle is contracting. Eccentric movement is a movement in the opposite direction. While the muscle is still contracting, the two ends of the muscle are separating and going further apart. It happens, for example, if you slowly bring the weight down, if you're lifting, let's say, a dumbbell, or if you're doing chin-ups. Instead of just dropping down, you slowly come up and then slowly come back down. Any movement involving lengthening of the muscle while it's contracting is called eccentric movement. And that is the part of the movement cycle that actually helps rewire nerve endings distributing the signals of contraction to the muscle fibers in a way that would reach out to a greater percentage of them. If you do this mindfully, you may enhance or increase the number of muscle fibers receiving signals of contraction all at once. Otherwise, they may receive signals of contraction, but the signals take their sweet time to trickle down to the muscle fibers. They literally may take minutes or even hours to get to the muscle. How do you know that is true? It's because you work out, lift weights, or do some other strenuous activity, and then several hours later, or maybe next morning, You feel like, oh, these muscles are sore. Oh my God, they're so tense. Now they are sore and tense not only because you broke down the muscle fibers when you were exerting effort, but also because the muscles are still tense because they're receiving these delayed signals of contraction. They wouldn't be tense if they were not receiving signals of contraction. If they're receiving these signals, why are they getting them? Is your central nervous system stupid to send the signals when they're not necessary? No, your central nervous system is smart. It's just these signals went through certain loops, took their sweet time to make their way to the muscle fibers. And like I said, it may take minutes or even hours. And then the muscle fibers start contracting. But it's way too late. It's not necessary. This undue tension is something that we know how to avoid, so that we develop the ability to contract muscle when it's necessary and release it when it's necessary. When we learn how to contract and relax, we engage muscle in the full functional range of motion. We engage the muscle fibers when necessary. Then we stop engaging them when we're done. You also will feel like your muscles are tired when they actually receive the signals of contraction. They contracted, and then when they're done doing the work, they relax. Tired muscles relax easier. If the muscles are not tired, they may still hold tension. But if you actually engage them in action and you engage those muscle fibers that used to receive signals late in action on time, all together, you will get a lot more strength. And then when you stop tensing up, you become more relaxed and thereby more flexible. Where else would flexibility come from? It doesn't come from stretching, because we already know that's a dysfunctional approach. It comes from relaxation. That's exactly why I say that there is a methodology that allows you to experience greater strength and greater flexibility. That's something that is like a dream come true for most athletes or gymnasts or martial artists or dancers. It's basically the method that allows you to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And it's also a lot easier to do than regular strength training, and it's also more pleasant than regular stretching, with one exception. And the exception is that we all produce endorphins, some people more so than others. These are the chemicals that your body produces when it's in pain. You literally have a built-in mechanism for pain killing. Endorphins are endogenously produced morphines, basically a form of opioids that kill pain. Why does body produce them? So that you don't get overwhelmed by pain sensations and don't go berserk. You basically feel under the influence of some opioid drugs when you experience endorphin. Those people who experience endorphin in this manner love doing these exercises because they get addicted to this opioid shot that they give themselves. They literally get addicted to the endorphin produced in their body. That happens as a result of causing themselves self-inflicted injuries or stretching their muscles or straining their muscles. It's also associated with runner's high. Obviously, as a runner, you may also cause yourself an endorphin rush if you get to a point of like, I can't do this anymore, but you push yourself or experience the endorphin rush, which is what we refer to also as the second wind. Now, instead of causing ourselves this type of addiction, we can do things in a much more mindful and much more intelligent way. And that way can engage the muscle in shortening at the same time as we're working on flexibility. Sounds paradoxical? Let me explain. What if you could actually engage your muscles in tensing up when working on flexibility. You can and should do that. You would literally help that muscle achieve its dream if you know how to do it right and you don't send this muscle into a spasm. You will simply engage this muscle in contraction. So, for example, a lot of people experience some tension in their calves from walking, running, doing various types of activities. Or simply women wearing high heels, they get used to the calves being really short. And so when they take the heels off, they experience tension in their calves because they're stretching the calves. It's very easy to help calves become more relaxed and more flexible while also engaging them in strength training. How to do that? Well, let me demonstrate. I'm going to stand in profile like this. And you can see how I'm putting one foot way ahead of the other. Now, the heel of the back foot, of the foot behind me, is up in air. The calf is short. If I try to bring that heel down, I will reach the edge of the comfort zone, maybe even before the heel touches the floor. So I don't want to push the heel further down, trying to reach the floor. That's not the objective. The objective is to find the edge of the comfort zone and remember where it is. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to contract the calves again, lifting the heel. As you do that, you shift the weight forward towards the opposite foot, but try to push with the front foot against the action of the calf, of the back leg. You also are lifting your center of mass, so obviously you're working against gravity, which is quite fine in this case. Now, go ahead and slowly release the tension on the calf. Again, be very mindful not to push yourself over the edge back there. Just get to the edge, and then again, contract the calf. You can also combine contraction with inhalation. And when you're ready to relax, your body will naturally want to exhale. So you can combine physical action with the workings of your physiology. They will support each other in this way. Physiology will support your physical actions, and vice versa. Physical actions will actually collaborate with your physiological functions. And do this a couple more times. Inhale as you lift the heel up, going against the resistance of the opposite leg and the weight of your body. And then relax as you're exhaling. Bring the heel down. Only go to the edge of the comfort zone. You will notice how just after a few revolutions of contraction and relaxation, your comfort zone will be at a different place. It will be easier for you to bring the heel down, or it will clearly just plop down on the ground because there is less tension in your calf. So as you do this one more time, notice how you're contracting the calf and then slowly relaxing. This is that eccentric phase of the motion. And then remember what it feels like. Compare the feelings in one leg versus the other leg. The leg that you just worked on, as opposed to the opposite leg that you haven't done this with. Do you notice the difference? You probably noticed that there is a greater circulation of lymph, blood, and chi in that leg that you were just contracting and relaxing. So, if you want to bring the other leg in line, let's do the same thing on the other side. Similarly, place one foot way ahead of the other foot. See how you can put the back foot so that the toes of the back foot would be pointing directly forward, right where the toes of the front foot are pointing. And then see how you can contract the calves of the back leg, the leg behind you, as you inhale. And as you exhale, release this tension and bring the heel down only to find the edge of the comfort zone. And repeat this a few times, going at the pace of your natural breath. So if you go too fast, you'll probably hyperventilate. I don't encourage you to hyperventilate in this case. I invite you to go at a relatively steady and smooth pace of breathing. And repeat this a couple more times. Contracting the calf, the back leg, lifting the back heel, providing some resistance with the opposite leg, and then bringing the heel down, releasing the tension on the calf. And let's do it one more time for good measure. And just notice how the calf of that foot feels. I bet your heel reaches a lot further down, or just rests on the floor effortlessly. If it doesn't, repeat this a few more times. It's quite literally the most effective way to release tension in your calves that takes very little time, little effort, and gives you the most beneficial results. That's the definition of peak performance. Doing that which takes the least amount of time, effort, and energy, and gives you maximum results. So this is peak performance in action. Do you feel a difference in your lower legs? If you don't, I encourage you to simply experiment. Find out maybe you need more tension, more resistance. If you do this slowly and mindfully, obviously also maintaining some degree of balance, you will be able to develop not only greater strength of your calves, because you're putting them through some exercise, but you also develop greater flexibility, because after the exercise, the muscles will become more tired, and the tired muscles relax easier. When your calves are more relaxed, something wonderful happens in your body. You actually experience circulation of qi connecting you with the ground. That's what we call being grounded. Being grounded means you actually are not blocking the flow of qi through your lower legs. Tension in the muscles of the lower legs can, and usually does, block the flow of qi, which leads to being ungrounded. If you want to experience energy circulating between your body and the rest of the planet Earth, how do you get grounded? Well, you just simply remove the impediment for the energy flow, which means you remove the tension. By contracting and relaxing a few times, you make your muscles more relaxed at the end, and that means you become a more relaxed person. That's right. The central nervous system that sends fewer signals of contraction to the muscles that used to be chronically tense becomes less agitated and sends fewer signals of contraction to other muscles of the body, including the breathing muscle, the diaphragm, which leads to easier breath, greater oxygenation of your body. We also become more energetically open and available to the flow of qi. And by the way, it goes hand in hand with strength training, because we achieve that by actually engaging the muscles in contraction and relaxation. Remember, we're talking about engaging the muscle and building greater strength, what we call inner strength, by training those muscle fibers to fire all together. We do this by actually reconnecting with that muscle and making sure that the signals of contraction arrive to the muscle fibers together, rather than in waves or in trickle. By achieving that, we become stronger, and the strength is not the result of building bigger muscle mass, but rather by using what you already have more efficiently. It also leads to the ability to contract and relax at will, which means once you're done exercising, you relax. When you relax, you become more flexible. And you also facilitate greater circulation of qi through your system, become more grounded, more rooted, more centered, all of the wonderful benefits that people hope to achieve from their studies of Qigong actually become available even before you engage in Qigong studies. Of course, I also have plenty of options in terms of Qigong studies on top of that. But I don't teach those before you learn how to actually quit being tense unnecessarily. So, this is my invitation for you. Let's learn together how to become stronger so that you can become more relaxed. By engaging your muscles, you literally will create the functionality that most people can only dream of. You may end up being more functional or stronger and more flexible than you were in your 20s, or whatever age you were in when you were feeling on top of the game. This is something that I invite you to explore with me in my upcoming group coaching program called Harmonious Strength Training. It's dedicated to strength and also flexibility. Another thing that you will experience as well is greater endurance. I have a whole separate video dedicated to endurance, how you achieve greater endurance through our training, so I'm not going to cover that in the context of this particular webinar. But I invite you once again to join our program. I actually dropped the tuition for this program by $100. So instead of $600, it's only $500. In fact, it's $497. And this program is worth every penny that you pay for it. Because in the course of the next 6 weeks, I will take you by the hand and walk you through the most intelligent and effective way to train your body to become stronger, more endure, and also more flexible. Now is the perfect time to get started with the Harmonious Strength Training. So please click the button below this video or on the side of this video, depending on which platform you watch this video on. And it will take you to the registration page. Please join my program now. We are starting right away, and I look forward to working with you for the next 6 weeks. You will never be the same. If you don't find that the first 2 weeks prove to you that this program really has the potential that you hoped it would, I will joyfully refund you your tuition. So you just simply take this program for a test drive. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Please join my program now. I look forward to continue this journey with you. Namaste.